Hopefully you can see my screen. Today I am presenting our database touch blueprint for you guys. So just a quick intro on what's going on for today. So one, I'll just introduce myself. Why am I personally speaking to you? I'll talk to you about this guy named Dave Hook and his business journey. We'll get into the why and what about database, how to actually run a database program, and then we'll leave you with some gifts there at the end. So real quick, just kind of brief introduction on myself. I was licensed in 2011. I was the second agent on what's called the Dave Hook team. So we're somewhat close to you guys. So we're in the Harrisburg area, just outside of Harrisburg in Carlisle, Cumberland County, Pennsylvania. And I joined his team when teams were becoming somewhat new at that point. 2018, I was his lead listing agent, sold about 80 units that year, and then I was promoted to marketing. Since then, I've essentially revamped their database touch programming and generated millions in GCI for that team year over year. And now I'm the CEO of what's called Rooted Business Consulting, and we help agents scale by referral. So that said, today's story is about Dave Hook. So this is a bit of an older photo. Pretty happy in his business. You can see he's smiling, but the problem was he's got stuff all over him. Like this was back in the day, leverage really wasn't a thing. So he was the listing photographer. He was probably, I don't know, he's got like a hammer on his belt, so I'm sure he was like hammering in signs and that sort of thing. But ultimately, prospecting based, work harder, not smarter, led to burnout, and he didn't really have any sort of database. So going back to an earlier phase of his career, this is probably midway point, right when he started developing a team. You can see the volume of his business really wasn't that bad. Again, we're in kind of like in a market that has a lower average price per listing. But that said, still doing about 12 million, about 250,000 in profit. Problem was he was kind of burning himself out. So 60 plus hours per week. That said, he was still making decent money, $83 an hour. But there was no sort of giving component to his business. That said, fast forward to the 2022 status. This was the year that Dave hit the net a million status. So MREA, seventh level net a million status agent right here. 100 plus million in volume, a million plus in profit. Cool fun fact is that he actually only worked an hour and a half each month in that business. So taking his hourly rate from $83 to about 44 grand. And then ultimately giving $100,000 away each year to his giving nonprofit called Project Lamplight. Now, the difference between those two, ultimately, so if we were to take this, you can see there's like an actual like vein protruding from his head, certainly was not healthy, to kind of this style. What did he have really to blame on it, right? Is ultimately the database. So Gary Keller told us in earlier days in the MREA that we more or less for the lead gen model, all it takes is 33 touches to place your name, brand, and face in front of your audience and net you 2 and 12 or 1 and 6 out of your list of know, like, and trust. That said, fast forward to 2025, things got a little bit more clunky. There's a lot more people out there competing for our attention. I think we now see somewhere in the ballpark of 10 to 15,000 impressions every single day. So there's just a lot of people out there buying our attention. So there's just a lot of noise that we have to kind of combat and kind of break through. So that said, the why and what of a database program, ultimately it saves you 5 to 6 hours of cold lead nurturing generation. I'll explain a little bit more about what that means. Scalability, as I mentioned, Gary said in the earlier days of, the MREA, I think 2001 is when that book was wrote. 33 touches nets you 2 and 12 or 1 and 6. Fast forward to our numbers and our model is a little bit less. So our results are a little bit less, but our double the effort gets you about similar to the results, but still a little bit less, 1 in 10. Also, it's the highest ROI and the highest ROE, so return on energy. So you can also zero cost it, offset all the cost, and it's pre-converted, and then it amplifies everything else. So this is foundational, and then it should amplify everything else, social media, billboards, etc., to make you omnipresent. Okay. So, and then the what? So like, what am I supposed to actually do? Really, it's a pretty simple 3-step process. Build it, feed it, and communicate with it. And we'll take a look at that here down the road. But I'm going to focus on pre-built trust real quick. So short story that I have for you. This guy named Dave Hook. So he's the team leader here for the Dave Hook team, and his grandfather opened up their shop in their family's kind of real estate business in early 1943. Okay, 1943. So 85, I think, at this point. Yeah, close to 85 years. Um, his dad took over in the 50s to 80s. As I mentioned, we live in Cumberland County, Carlisle, kind of small. His dad more or less developed 50 to 60, 70% of our town. So like all the developments and neighborhoods was due to Dave's dad's kind of doing. And then when Dave opened up his independent brokerage in early 2000s, he basically expected the phone to ring off the hook. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. He's like, oh no, I guess I have to do something. So he read the MREA, and he realized that he had to generate a list of people and provide them with value. Okay. Problem is, he didn't really have a list. He didn't know where to start. So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to door knock. I'm going to door knock the three closest neighborhoods to my family here. And he did. Eventually, he was an early guy. I'm sorry, he was a young guy early in his career. So he at first he's like, what am I supposed to do? He's full getup is like a tuxedo. He's like, I got a tuxedo and he's knocking on these doors. And then he's like, you know what? I might even make this a little bit more efficient. So he decided to put on rollerblades to get from one door to the next a little bit quicker. Eventually, people caught on. Eventually, people started taking him seriously. You just knock on the door. Hey, I'd love to be your home ownership advocate. Is there anything I can do to help you? And they'd be like slamming, the door in his face. And then eventually, what he learned was it took about 5 to 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours to generate a list of 250 people. So 5 to 6 hours of building trust for them to kind of more or less, if there's the idea of them actually kind of reaching out to Dave in the event that they have a need for real estate or somebody they know, is moving or something. Eventually, he had about 250 people that started referring him business. Thing is, it took 2 years, okay, 5 to 6 hours per person, 1,250 hours if you combine that, and then you multiply that by his hourly rate at that time. It cost him about $105,000 of his time to generate a list of 250 people that knew him, liked him, and trusted him. Instead of just sitting down and writing all the warm relationships that he's already kind of generated over the last 40 years of his life, right? So instead of sitting down, non-sexy, mundane, tedious, boring work, right? Just writing down, time blocking a couple hours, he essentially lost $100,000 of his time. So definitely don't want that mistake for anybody else. Here's another kind of, this is dynamic, so just know that these do change often, but just a quick glimpse at our lead source ROIs. The Dave Hook team probably has about 20 some lead sources. These are just a snapshot. These are probably older too. I know whenever Realtor.com switched over to Opcity, they saw 1-to-1, so they actually stopped that. Zillow always at least performed a 3-4-to-1 return. So they always had an investment into that channel. Expired FSBOs, you can see, are pretty decent. Google Local Services is also a very inexpensive lead source that I would recommend somebody tapping into. And then the Dave Hook Team database, you can see it returns at a 31-to-1 return, right? Trumps everything else. Scalability, this just shows you kind of going back to when Gary said the 33 touches nets you about 2 and 12 or 1 and 6. Our numbers are 60 touches nets you about 1 in 10. Pretty simple net math here, but you can see, again, 2022, the year that the status that Dave was the net a million agent and that sort of thing. The Dave Hook team had about 1,800 people in their tight knit database that they were sending all sorts of, all their touches to. So including event invitations and print marketing and that sort of thing. So 1,800 people that year, they saw about 175 sides from just that source alone. And again, about 1 in 10 converts. Amplifies everything else. So, once you have this foundation built, it then makes you omnipresent for everything else. So social media, radio, billboards, paid leads, Google, etc. It all kind of ties in and makes you more or less your face, name, and brand everywhere. And then here's the process and how we actually build it. So that was kind of why. Now it's what. What do you do to kind of make this happen? I'll slow down a little bit here. But this first one is where I kind of gave you that quick example of Dave more or less wasting $105,000 of his time. Instead of sitting down, time blocking 2 3 hour blocks, he went he went 2 years and 1,250 hours. Okay, so big kind of learning process there. So who do you already know, like, and trust is a big question. Now I know Bold also, I believe, gave out a questionnaire during their trainings to try to get people your wheels spinning, exercise to kind of get your mind going of who's in your world that you've already spent a 5 to 6 hour window of trust with. Um, if you've done that, they have to go in your list. Okay. So that said, time block 2 3 hour blocks. Prepare a spreadsheet. I'm going to get a little primitive on you. All right. So I know there's all sorts of fancy CRMs and that sort of thing out there. I don't really care what CRM you're using. I just want the CRM that you're using to be the one that you're actually going to use. So if it's doing everything that you need, that's great. I'm going to go back to a spreadsheet though. Okay. So prepare the spreadsheet, gather your METs. So I'm going to give you some examples, some exercises on what to do to generate these people that you've already built that 5 to 6 hour window of trust with. Then you're going to research a little bit more of their information to get their full contact information. And then you can take that spreadsheet once all your information and data is inputted in your spreadsheet, then you can upload that to a CRM and then import and tag, etc. So I'll kind of slow down a little bit on the steps. So first and foremost is very primitive, a spreadsheet. Okay. Now I have the columns labeled here based on what platforms or what sort of marketing channels or media sources that you would need. This information is just kind of what all those platforms are going to request. Okay, so first name, last name, phone number, email address, and then this is kind of if you're getting into print marketing, mailing address, city, state, and zip code. So that's how a printer will want your contacts mailing information. So starting there. And then the next is some resources that you're actually going to be able to generate contact information. Okay, so again, I do this. Sometimes I do have some actual people that would engage with me in here, but I take people through this exercise of going to their phone and going to the contacts. Sometimes I have people shout out how many contacts are in their phone, and I hear anywhere from 300, 400. I personally have 2,600. I think the highest amount is about 8,000, 10,000 people or something, right? So there's just one way of generating a list of people. Another way is going to any sort of email platform that you're using. This one's just an example of a Gmail platform. But if you basically just start typing letters and then any names that populate, add them to the spreadsheet. So for example, A, any A's that populate. B, any B's that populate. Facebook and LinkedIn are also still resources that you can generate contact information. So you can still get phone numbers and email addresses. It's just going to take a little bit of time to kind of, track them down. And the other thing here is Exhibit A. So this is what I was explaining is likely in the Bold. I think this came from Bold, honestly. It's just 150 questions of people that you've already spent that 5 to 6 hour window of trust with to get them added to your database. Okay. So like, for example, who's your dentist? Who's your child's dentist? Who's your doctor? Who's your spouse's partner's doctor? Who's your child's doctor? Who's your dermatologist? Who does your taxes? Who cuts your grass? Who does your landscaping? Who does your household repairs? So just getting the wheel spinning for anybody that you've already, again, more or less love and kind of want to work with, or anybody you potentially give money to for services. They'd be happy to be reciprocating. Okay. So Exhibit A is a great tool to kind of get your wheels spinning on who to add to your actual database list. The last part of this is just in the event that you're looking to generate like mailing information. This is just a screenshot of what our local, actually, yeah, this is probably, you guys probably on Bright too. So what I've found the easiest way to generate mailing information is to, one, you have an idea of the city that they're located in, and then their last name, and then just doing a little bit of trial and error to kind of weed through the options. You might sometimes, especially if you get like a Joe Smith or something, you might have 15, 20 options that you just have to kind of cognitively more or less do some kind of trial and error and reduce any options of some people that are wrong in there. So that's unfortunately the easiest way, and potentially it might take a little bit of time, but still it'll get you actual contact information for the mailing addresses. So the next step is to, once you have all that information, now we got to apologize, okay? And I have two scripts here. One is for a call and one is for a text, but basically they both say about the same thing, okay? You're going to apologize, say, hey, I failed. I've learned from a mentor of mine that they more or less stay, in touch with their people to become their home ownership advocates, not just when they're looking to buy or sell, so just know I'm sorry. I failed you for the last couple of years, and moving forward, I would just like to be that person. So do you have any issues with me potentially popping in and providing you with some value throughout the month? In the event that you want to be taken off, no hard feelings, just let me know, and that's easy to do too. So basically, you're getting their permission to provide them with value. That also breeds more trust. And then this is a text message, similar kind of dialogue to kind of just more or less get that permission-based marketing intact. And then once you have that permission, then you just tag them and add them to the CRM of your choice. Okay. Ultimately, tag them. My recommendation would be to tag them some sort of like database marketing way of knowing that is that lead source. So that could be inner circle, it could be, SOI. Some people call it all sorts of different things, but ultimately database, I know, comes with 1,000 different definitions as well, but that's what we call it. Second step, to feed it. Okay, so I think I mentioned this a couple of times, going back to the MREA, the 33 touch plan, 2 and 12, or 1 and 6. Right there, it's just a scales, right? So if you add more people to it, I would just recommend adding one time block each month to make sure that you're adding anybody that you came across that month to your list. Okay, so is it anybody that did I meet somebody at a listing appointment? Did I meet a buyer? Did I sign a buyer? Or did my friend just kind of get back in touch with me that I haven't heard from in about a year or so? All these, it's just a way to get it to scale. So if you want another, 10 deals next year, hey, okay, well, I have to add another 100 people, right? Okay. And then it's pretty simple. One step process. Just set it, forget it. And then the last phase is, what am I actually supposed to say to it? Okay, so how am I supposed to communicate to this database so therefore that I will actually see some sort of result where I can close one deal for every 10 people on my list, right? So first and foremost, the big headshot in Dave's logo, right? So name, face, and brand should be placed on everything, okay? That said, here is more or less what we call kind of a 60 touch program. It's a little bit larger than 60 touches, but ultimately, this is what we would consider a 60 touch program to stay in touch with our people to net 1 in 12. I'm sorry, 1 in 10. So 12 direct mail pieces, one month as a postcard, 1 month as a newsletter. And then on top of that, additional bulkier items of value, promotional items, so things that stick. So we're doing everything in our power to place your name, brand, and face in front of your audience 60 times throughout the year so they see, you more or less convert 1 in 10. But now there's refrigerator magnets and that sort of thing. So they're seeing your name, brand, and face multiple times per day. 36 emails per year, listings. People want inventory to click on. It's pretty educational based video. We help people create content to pose them as the authority in their industry. And then all text emails, just taking somebody through a pain, pleasure, and how you can help and get in touch with you, call to action. Client events for the people that like to be, face to face, very extroverted people, quarterly, seasonally events. And then ultimately, 4 database calls, right? TCPA compliant, making sure that you're doing everything there, but ultimately just making sure that they hear from you 4 times per year. Okay. So a little bit more in depth, what does all that stuff look like? So email, you can see, name, brand, and face. You can see there it's covered everywhere, right? So a little bit more kind of a programming kind of method there, but name, brand, and face, name, brand, and face. 3 emails, listings, educational based video, all text. And then the printed pieces, you can see there's a postcard here. Also, I know it's probably hard to tell, but there's logos of brands here. So just know the Dave Hook team also has what's called a brand ambassador program. They have about 20, 25 small local businesses that contribute to all the marketing expenses that the Dave Hook team exudes. So that's a more or less offsets their entire marketing expense. So they're doing all this, as I mentioned, a 31-to-1 return. Now it's more or less infinite because they have no expenses, right? So a very good way to be able to create partnerships within your communities. If you have some really good referral partners that would love the exposure of your database as well, easy way to kind of get that tied together. But you can see here there's a handwritten blurb on this stuff. So 3 elements when it comes to this type of marketing: hyper local, obviously, to your market, relevant to the industry, and the most important thing that you can kind of send to your people is personal content. So when you talk about wins, you talk about successes, you talk about vulnerabilities, losses, failures, issues, concerns, and that sort of thing. It's what really taps into your audience emotional centers and makes you memorable. Okay. Real quick, Dave talked about a fear of public speaking. He belonged to this coaching program about 10 years ago. The owner of that company asked Dave to kind of do a presentation in front of 300 people for about an hour. Freaked out, had panic attacks, went to therapy, wrote about it in one of these newsletter articles, and people a dozen years later came up to him and thanked him and said how much that resonated with them. And so, meaning it really sticks. If we talk about that, it really taps into people's emotional centers and makes you memorable. Events, getting all these are also created in the event that you have different behavioral profiles in your audience. So, for example, email, digital stuff, people that are more or less introverted, don't really like to be face to face, tend to like email. I personally hate email. It doesn't have anything to do with who's sending it to me or the brand or whatever it is. I am just super addicted to a zero inbox. That's it, right? So just because that's my behavioral kind of tick, I'm likely gonna be, if you send me information from your database, it's all digital, I'm gonna unsubscribe and you're not gonna touch me. Okay. So just know that there's likely 25, 30% of your audience members might be that way, right? So therefore, we want to get them something tangible, something they can hold in their hands, and if that's what they like, or if they're super extroverted, they love to be face to face, invite them to an event. Okay. On top of that, items of value, things that, again, stick. So magnets, calendar magnets, they're bigger. They're promotional items. They come with like an envelope, a cover letter, and that sort of thing. Market prospectus, we basically take Gary Keller's vision speech and create a cool kind of prospectus on what the market's going to perform like that year, that sort of thing. So just good ways, good pieces of value that you can provide to your people. Again, name, brand, and face plugged on everything, and then also call to actions. It's very strong to have call to actions on your marketing. The phone calls, these are just some examples of ways to call your people. I know a lot of people I often hear from them that they never call their databases. Well, we have a few options here. And then that said, I'm going to gift you, I think that kind of segues into this. I will give the admin of the Market Center a copy of this to share it with everybody. But basically, this is step-by-step instructions on how to build, feed, and communicate with your database. So this can more or less give you action items, steps to self-implement a 36-touch program. At the back of this is that questionnaire that we reviewed. To ultimately get you 150 additional people in your database. And that is pretty much it. The point of that I was trying to say there is that all those dialogues are also in here. So in the event that you don't know what to say, you don't know how to ask people, for business or just, to come from contribution or value, there's all sorts of methods in here. So hopefully you glean some value out of that. And then that's pretty much it. Some people ask, is there any sort of systems out there that work? We do have a done for you system in the event that, you're at a point where you maybe need some leverage. We happy to jump on a call. We audit people's databases all the time. Feel free to jump on at rootabc.com, check out that stuff. And then, yeah, for those that are actually here and present, in the event that you want to leave us some feedback, we would greatly appreciate that. I hope you guys got some value.